one of the great provisions of God toward us is that Jesus Christ died in our place. The Bible makes it very clear that the wages of sin is death. And one of the great things about Christianity, one of the wonderful things about Christianity, and one of the things that sets Christianity apart from other religions is that I don't have to pay for my own sin. You know, if you think about it, in so many other religions, whatever I do is going to come back against me. But God, in His grace, realizes that being flesh and blood, we're going to sin. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to make bad choices. Sometimes we're going to make very bad choices, and sometimes we're going to sin very grievously for a very long time. And one of the earmarks of Christianity is grace. You know, if you study comparative religions or you get a textbook on comparative religions and take a look at them, I know there's a lot of talk about, oh, you know, all religions are basically the same. That's just not true. Besides, when you compare things, what you compare, if you're going to really understand them, is the differences. For example, I can compare an apple and a pear, and I can say, oh, well, they both grow on trees. Yeah, sure, and they're both fruit. Okay, that's good, and we eat them both. Wow, they've got a lot of things the same. But what makes an apple different from a pear is its differences. And that's true of Christianity. I mean, sure, every religion is supposed to help people. You can say that. But what makes religions really different is what's really important. And what is wonderful about Christianity is the grace that God has for us and the provision that He's made for us. The Bible is very clear. The wages of sin is death. And I've sinned plenty in my life, and I know you have too, because you're a human being. And what God has done in His grace is He has provided Jesus Christ to be a substitute for our sin. And He talks about that in 2 Corinthians 5:21. And yet the way 2 Corinthians 5:21 is worded in most Bibles, it isn't clear. Let me just read it to you from the New International Version. God made Him, Jesus, who had no sin, to be sin for us, so that in Him we might become the righteousness of God. I read this verse for years and years and years and just couldn't wrap my mind around it. Why? Because it says God made Him, God made Jesus, who knew no sin, to be sin. And that just never made any sense to me. How can a person be sin? That just never made any sense. And one of the things that happens when the Bible doesn't make sense is our minds just don't really grasp the truth of what's going on. God didn't write the Bible so we wouldn't understand it. He wrote it so we would understand it. And dozens of times, especially in books like Proverbs, but actually all through the Bible, God tells us that He's given us a mind. Remember, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And He tells us to use wisdom. And we have to use our minds and use wisdom when it comes to interpreting and understanding the Bible. And it's astounding to me, in light of what we know scholastically about the Greek word, that version after version after version of the New Testament these modern versions continue to translate 2 Corinthians 5:21 that God made Jesus to be sin. What does that even mean? The Greek word hamartia, does mean sin, but it has a second meaning. And that second meaning is sin offering. By the way, this is one of the reasons why, if you do study in the text, it's important to have a number of different Greek lexicons. You can check, for example, I remember checking Thayer, and I remember checking a couple other lexicons that didn't list the second definition of hamartia. And it's very important that we understand that it does. And so, for example, a lot of times if there's just something that doesn't work for you in one textbook, it doesn't mean that you've got the final answer. And if you will check enough lexicons, it will come up in some of them that there is a second meaning to the word sin, and that meaning is a sin offering. And that's exactly right, that God made Jesus Christ to be a sin offering for you and me. And that's what we needed. I had plenty of sin of my own. I didn't need Jesus Christ to become sin. How is that going to help? I got my own sin. What I need is a substitute, an offering for sin, something that'll pay for my sin. And that's exactly what happened. God made Jesus Christ to be a sin offering so that my sin, and yours by the way, would be paid for, would be taken care of, would be expunged from God's sight, so we could stand righteous before God. This is really powerful. Now remember, 2 Corinthians 5:21, it's written to the Corinthians. It's written to Corinth. Corinth was a very, very large Greek city. One of the largest trading emporiums actually in the Greco-Roman world. And what Bible were they reading? I mean, obviously, the New Testament Bible wasn't around yet. So they're reading the Old Testament in Greek. And the Old Testament in Greek is called the Septuagint. Even the Jews in Corinth, many of them would be reading the Old Testament in Greek. I mean, heck, if you remember Acts chapter 6, there were Jews in Jerusalem that were reading the Septuagint. That's why they're called the Grecian Jews in Acts chapter 6. And all through the Old Testament, in the Septuagint, we see this word sin used for a sin offering. Here's Exodus chapter 29, verse 14. It says, "But burn the bull's flesh and hide its offal outside the camp. It is a sin offering." Very clear. Same exact word as appears in 2 Corinthians 5:21. Leviticus 4:24. "He is to lay his hand on the goat's head, slaughter at the place where the burnt offering is slaughtered before Yahweh. It is a sin offering." Here, sin offering is the exact word that's translated in the 2 Corinthians 5:21 is sin. Here's what F.F. Bruce says in his commentary. Bruce says, "This remarkable expression, talking about sin, making him to be sin, can best be understood on the assumption that Paul had in his mind the Hebrew idiom in which certain words for sin do not mean sin, mean not only sin, but sin offering." Christ couldn't become sin for us because sin is it's something it's an abstract concept in the sense it's breaking the commandments of God. So there are some lexicons that say, well, sin is put for by metonymy for what Jesus was, which was a sinner. Normally that might work, but you see that Jesus Christ didn't become a sinner. The whole Bible testifies to the holiness of God. Jesus Christ had to be sinless to be an offering. That's the whole point. If Jesus Christ became a sinner, then he couldn't have died for you and me. I'm a sinner already. He had to be a sin offering. It's a perfect translation and it makes wonderful sense. This wouldn't matter to you if you don't do a lot of work in Greek, but a wonderful man named Manti, Dr. Manti, did a manual grammar of the Greek New Testament. Very, very well known in the scholastic world for his abilities in Greek, and like I say, wrote that grammar. He did a review on this particular version of the Bible, which is called the New Testament in the language of the people, by Charles Williams. And after reviewing the Greek in it, here's his conclusion. "We conclude that it's the best translation of the New Testament in the English language." And I have read Williams' translation extensively, and I do like it a lot. Here's the way Charles Williams translates this verse, and I really like this translation. "He made him who personally knew nothing of sin to be a sin offering for us, so that through union with him we might come into right standing with God." And that's exactly right. Jesus Christ was made a sin offering. I've got sin. I don't want to die with that sin unaccounted for. And God, by his grace, provided a sin offering whereby my sin is paid for in Jesus Christ, and I am given right standing in the sight of God. What a wonderful God we have. We all can have right standing in the sight of God through Jesus Christ.